So the Trump administration has announced that it will immediately lift its pause on military and intelligence support for Ukraine, with this decision coming after Ukraine agreed to a U.S. proposal for a temporary ceasefire in its war with Russia. According to a joint statement from both countries, Ukraine is willing to accept a 30-day ceasefire that could be extended if all sides agree, but this deal depends on whether Russia accepts and follows the same terms. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the U.S. will present the ceasefire proposal to Russia in hopes that they will agree to it. The fact that the US and Ukrainian officials could even issue a joint statement shows that there has been a major improvement in their relationship, especially after last month's very public fight between President Trump and Zelensky in the Oval Office, which is what led to the sudden halt in US military aid to Ukraine. Now, the talks took place in Saudi Arabia, lasting more than 8 hours, with both sides trying to figure out how to move forward towards peace. While there, Ukrainian officials pushed for a limited ceasefire that would stop both Ukraine and Russia from launching long-range missiles or drone attacks from air or sea. However, battles along the front lines would continue. I don't think Russia would go for this, though, because this portion of the deal favors Ukraine far more than Russia. Russia's missile arsenal is one of the few things keeping it moving forward on the battlefield. Russia's ground forces are largely degraded at this point, only able to move under heavy barrages of air-launched missiles. Ukraine also proposed expanding the ceasefire to include areas like the Black Sea to ensure safe shipping routes, stopping long-range missile attacks that harm civilians, and working on prisoner exchanges, all of which show Zelensky is working towards the humanitarian aspect of the war as well as a ceasefire in general. And yes, they did discuss the possibility of the US gaining access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals, something that obviously Trump is eager to secure, but Secretary Rubio made it clear that such a deal wasn't required for the US to keep talking with Ukraine or Russia. However, Russia may have other ideas. Putin said today that he will not make compromises on his maximalist demands for Ukraine. These include full withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from the 4 occupied regions, which are Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, Crimea, and Zaporizhia, effectively requiring Ukraine to give up these territories and also forcing Ukraine to recognize them as Russian. Putin also demands Ukraine's neutrality, which would require Ukraine to abandon any ambitions of joining NATO or any other Western security alliances, leaving it vulnerable to future Russian aggression without any international military support. The Kremlin also stated there will be no international peacekeepers in Ukraine. Putin also said he wants denazification of Ukraine, which really means the Kremlin demands the removal of what they describe as a pro-Ukrainian nationalist element within Ukraine's government, although this term is largely BS and really just means Putin wants a Kremlin puppet in charge of Ukraine. Putin also wants the Ukrainian military to dismantle, as well as protection for Russian-speaking citizens in Ukraine. Putin has emphasized that any peace agreement must ensure the rights and freedoms of Russian-speaking individuals in Ukraine, suggesting special legal protections and possible autonomy for the regions that have a significant Russian-speaking population. Basically, this actually can create the precursor or an excuse for a future invasion by agreeing to have this special status for Russian-speaking people in Ukraine. And then finally, Putin obviously wants all sanctions lifted. Now, I don't know what the entirety of the deal in Ukraine entails, but I can guarantee you there is no way that all of Russia's demands were met. And as all of this was happening, violence on the battlefield surged. Russia shot down more than 300 Ukrainian drones in what was Ukraine's biggest attack on Russian territory since Russia invaded. At the same time, Russia attacked Ukraine with 126 drones and ballistic missiles. Now, Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is expected to visit Moscow soon, possibly to meet with Putin, but Putin rarely meets with non-heads of state when the stakes are so high, such as we see right now. Some believe a ceasefire could be a step towards peace, but many worry it would only give Russia time to regroup and attack again. And given Putin's maximalist demands, there really is no way forward on a true lasting peace unless Russia agrees to significant concessions that, as of right now, they just aren't. The Ukrainians are warning that any pause might let Russia build up its weapons and troops for another assault. Although both sides are far apart in what they want, these talks may actually be a step towards easing the violence if all sides are serious about finding a way to stop the war. As I said before, the only reason Russia would be willing to stop it, given the fact that they continue to advance, is for a potential regroup, something that the Ukrainians are aware of, and I'm pretty sure Marco Rubio and his crew are also aware of. We'll have to see what the next step is, or if Russia agrees to anything in this deal, because, again, I just don't think there's anything that benefits Russia at this point, other than possibly we might see some sanctions relief. And that could be something the United States offers. But as of right now, why would Russia agree to anything? Because the US is now restarting its aid and intelligence sharing with the Ukrainians, which definitely does not benefit Russia at this point.